Okay, pause over. It's review time, everybody. And this is great because this is the first time I'm doing, this is the only review I've done. This is the only review I'm going to do. I didn't get to see the other two early. I mean, I didn't get to see this one early. This is it. This is it. This is what you're getting. Deal with it. Bye. See ya. So let's just get into some opening thoughts, Sasha. I'll have you go first. What did you think of episode 3 of Loki overall? What were your thoughts?
I mean, honestly, and Jared knows that I feel this way whenever he reviews something that I'm not reviewing. I'm like, this is exactly what I would have said, so there's no point in me making video. His thoughts on this episode coming at the point that it did in the season is exactly how I feel. I think if it came any later in the season, would have been over. It would have been, what am I trying to say? It would have been worse than people's current reaction to it. But if it was earlier, it would have been, everything would have been rushed. So I think it's at the perfect point in the season for an episode like this to come. And I guess I'll just start with, I love this show. I love this character. That purple is my favorite color. If anyone that watches my videos, literally everything behind me is purple. So I don't really think that I could have loved the look of this episode more, I loved that. I definitely was a little underwhelmed by the story. And I think I find myself with this episode trying to parse what the strategy and formula is for each of these MCU shows. Because I feel like each of them have kind of had an episode like this where the two characters that people like the most are not really together the whole episode, or we go somewhere that's totally different than what we're used to, i.e. when I can't really picture what it would be for WandaVision, but for this really reminded me of Madripoor in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and the idea of just taking them somewhere they've never been before and kind of trying to do that sort of thing. I like the dialogue, and I think a lot of people forget that a lot of times TV is way more dialogue heavy, and I think we're used to Marvel shows where there's action pieces, which I think we got the best action piece in this season that we've gotten so far. It's just that it's paired with a kind of very sullen toned episode and much more quieter in comparison to everything before, which was a lot of shock factor. So I definitely just lie in a very kind of neutral state with this episode. If next episode is great, I'm not going to think twice about what this episode was, or if this information comes to pass later that to be, important. We had a couple great reveals, which some people are talking about in the comments, but it was not my favorite. My favorite episode is still episode 1. And this episode made me like episode 2 even more than I already did, just because of that TVA atmosphere that I love so much. And so that's what I think I didn't love too much about this episode. But what did you think, Jack?
I really liked it. Now, it might be recency bias. I literally just watched it 20 minutes ago, but I dug it. And look, someone said this I think it was my friend Koki. He said this. He says, this is the before sunrise of the MCU. If you are a fan of the Before trilogy, I think you will really enjoy this episode. So, it's not filler.
That is the one thing I have to agree with.
Not filler. I am tired of everyone always calling everything that doesn't have a lot of action filler. It's not filler. Stop it. Stop it with the filler. Stop it. I've gone on some heavy rants lately, especially in my Pixar ranking, which y'all have been blowing up, so thank you. It is not filler. We got the most action in this season in this episode, and you want to call this filler? And because usually people call episodes filler when there's not a lot of action, there's not a lot of spectacle. We got the most action in the series so far. This episode, y'all are wrong. It's not filler. But and I know I'm gonna push aside. For real though, I love the conversations. I'm a big in media in general conversation guy. Action's great. I love the portal sequence in Endgame. I love that final battle. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. But I love something like the Before trilogy, where it is two people walking around a city aimlessly, not knowing where they're going or what they're doing. There's not really any plot at all. And they're just having conversations about, pardon my French, random shit. It's literally what it is. And if you guys have seen the Before trilogy, you know what I'm talking about. But it works because you care about the characters in a way, in some weird way, that you are genuinely interested in what they are talking about. Is Sylvie, which we got a name for Lady Loki now, is she or Loki like gonna ever find love? Maybe, but let's be real here. Sylvie might, because we've kind of teed that up. But like, is Loki really ever gonna find love? That may never come to pass, but it still resonates to people out here in the real world. Those conversations are impactful for people. And I love that, because no, they're not talking about Thanos or the fate of the world or any of this stuff. They're talking about regular human stuff, which makes us, it brings us in. It brings us closer to them. They feel more human, even though they're not. They're gods. They're immortal. They're whatever you want to call them. So I really like that they did that. And also the conversations are they were interesting. I was intrigued. I really enjoyed that. And the other thing I want to, the other point I want to make here is we don't need the TVA in every episode.
It's true.
We don't. Everyone's mad that
it's not called TVA. It's called Loki.
It's called Loki. This was the best episode because we really got to see Loki just chilling. I know that sounds bad, but it's kind of good, because the thing I love about this series so much, the thing that this series is doing so well, is it is making Loki an actual person. He's always been the side hoe. Always. No, I know.
That's perfect description.
The way I say that, but he's
Marvel uses him when they want, and when they don't need him, they just
kill him and make emotion, and then they bring him back and like, ha, fooled ya, he's here again. Like, they always use him kind of as a rag doll. This is giving him personality. This is giving him character. So with having these random discussions with Sylvie, aka Lady Loki, you start to really get to know him as a person. You get to see his feelings and his emotions, how he thinks about things. I love that. And you know what? And another thing, sorry, I know I'm rambling.
Go off, Jack.
But I haven't really had a forum to talk about this because I just watched it. This is gonna be more than one season. It's going to be more than one season. Everyone's all mad because it's like, this is a filler episode. We're halfway through the season. We only have 3 episodes left. We got 3 more episodes left in this season. Then season 2 is going to come around. And you know what? If the story doesn't end there, guess what's going to happen? Season 2 is going to come around, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. Give me a break, guys. Come on.
I mean, I totally have to agree in the sense that, like, when people talk about a filler episode, what they're referencing is what TV was like 20 years ago, when a network show was required to have 22-ish episodes if it was a comedy, or like, I don't know what it was for a drama, but say 22-ish episodes, right? And you genuinely do not have enough money to make all of those the same quality, and you do not have enough story to make all of those as interesting. And like, people like remember bottleneck episodes because they have to be super creative and super well written, because your characters are like, you're trying to save money and they're in one spot. And that's where like the idea of like a filler episode comes from, of like, it's literally about nothing. You could cut it out and you don't need it. In these shows, I think what people are forgetting, and they need to have at least I try to have this mindset, just because like these Marvel shows, like, they're all going to be overhyped to some extent because all of us are such big fans, and this is the first time they're doing this. Like, this is the first time they are seriously integrating these characters into television in a way that they didn't with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they didn't with Agent Carter. But if Marvel didn't think this episode was important, okay, if they didn't feel like this was a necessary addition to the story that they're trying to tell, right, they could have made it a 5-episode season. Marvel and Disney don't need to pay anyone to make it a 5-episode season. In fact, it would probably save them more money, specifically with that one-shot action sequence at the end. Do you know how much money that probably cost for it to be a filler episode? Now, I understand when people use the word filler, it's like an easy way to say, like, I didn't like the episode because I didn't feel like anything was important. But like, just switch the cap and just say, instead of like everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Listen, like when I make letterbox ratings, I don't make it for like this movie was cinema or not. I rank it because I like the movie or I don't like the movie. So I totally think that's valid. But I'm also saying that like if you're trying to like seriously try to find a silver lining with these things, put on the cap of like what is Marvel trying to say with this episode. And I totally agree with you, Jack, that what they're trying to do in this episode is make Loki look at a different version of himself that he thinks he understands everything about because he's kind of a smart ass. Like that's just who Loki is. And then he meets this person who in a lot of ways, and what I think was actually interesting about the episode, has had it super like way worse than him and has been this way because of survival, whereas Loki, it's been a matter of choice. Their reaction to like not having a plan says a lot about who they are as characters and what they've done. Loki gets drunk and chills out because everything's just going to work out for him. He literally doesn't die. Like we've seen him die how many times? Backstab people, backstab Thor. Someone at the end of the day helps him out. This other Loki, Lady Loki, Sylvie, clearly hasn't had that happen. And that's why she's on edge. That's why she's trying to rest so she can make the best.
Always looking over her shoulder.
Right, exactly. And I think that speaks volumes just about where we're supposed to go for the rest of the season. And I've seen a couple people in my comments on my video today say like, I think we may have had it backwards with how we align ourselves with the TVA or with the or with Lady Loki, and it may be the opposite. And I think what this episode is just trying to do is whether Lady Loki ends up being the villain or the TVA ends up being the villain, to like realize that these things are way more complicated than just Avengers good, whoever the other person is bad. And like I don't know, like I'm trying to be optimistic about things, so I try to look for the purpose and what all of these things are, because they're trying to tell a story. And like I get it if people didn't enjoy it as much, but you get 3 more episodes, and I totally agree with Jack. Like this is probably, of all the shows thus far, this is going to be the one that has multiple seasons, because they don't need to bring this character back into the movies. They really don't. Like there's not a reason to. And they need to have a show at some point that's like The Mandalorian, where they have multiple shows or a spin-off, or multiple seasons, and a spin-off or something like that from it. I think they know what they're doing. I don't know. I totally understand where their critique is coming from. I feel the same way. But like, look for that silver lining and don't be so quick to be like, this episode was horrible and the writers are losing me and like I have a terrible opinion about the rest of the season now, because the next 3 episodes could be 2 hours, you know? Like, honestly, for those of you who didn't like it, be glad it was 10 minutes less than the other ones. Like, I personally thought that was an indication of that is how long they believed this episode needed to be. It was 42 minutes. It needed to come at 0.3. They're not perfect. The MCU is not perfect. What can I say? You know?
Yeah, but I mean, even to that vein, it may not be the best episode, which I personally think it's really good. But what is bad?
Yeah.
I hate to harken again back to my my Pixar ranking, but that's the whole argument with Loki that I just hate. I mean, Luca. Apologies. That's the whole thing about Luca. The whole argument about Luca that I just hate. Oh, it's not as good as Toy Story, so it's a trash movie. No. What is bad?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, Thor: The Dark World is bad. The Incredible Hulk is bad. But like, what really is bad? You know, and I swear I'm going to get to more good review stuff, but I just kind of got to get my thoughts out there because this is what I've been seeing on social media. Just because you don't get everything that you want doesn't make the episode bad. I think this is probably one of the best sequenced, best written, best shots, and best choreographed episodes of any MCU TV so far. Yeah, I'd go out on that limb. And we'll get into some more specifics in a little bit, but just because there's not a lot of action, which again, this is like the most action we've had in any of the episodes, just want to really harken that back for everyone. It didn't further the plot that much. Fine. But that doesn't make it a bad episode. You know what I mean? So let's just move past that, because let's get into some of the other good stuff. I really liked Sylvie, Lady Loki. I don't remember who the actress is, but
Sophia DiMartino.
Yes, she's great. She plays a great version of Lady Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Of Loki, like you're looking at Loki, you know, as a different type of Loki. I liked her. I thought she was great. I thought she added a lot. She had some. She wasn't like I was worried. I thought she was going to be a little tense and stuck up and in her ways, but like when they were sitting at the table on the train, she kind of let loose, just had some conversations, and I really liked that. I thought that she really brought an interesting dynamic. What was your thoughts on Lady Loki or Sylvie?
I definitely feel the same way. I really liked her in the more loosened up. I think what I liked most about her, I think even though she's supposed to be playing a variation of the same characters as Tom Hiddleston is playing, it was able to be imbued in both in the writing of how the character's backstory is and also like Sophia DiMartino's performance of her. I feel like she is a very great foil version of Loki, of like, oh, I knew I was adopted. Oh, well, I didn't. I didn't have siblings. I did. Like, there's that back and forth that I like. Like, she's a character that's specifically been created to make Loki look at himself a different way, or to give us as an audience a different perspective of everything that's been going on. And like, the MCU knows what they're doing. When they cast Owen Wilson, they know we're gonna like Owen Wilson. Okay, I don't think Owen Wilson has ever played the bad guy in his life, or at least where someone didn't like him as the bad guy. And so I feel like if we're supposed to at this point question the TVA, we need to have someone who has reasonable credibility. I think Sylvie as Lady Loki, or Lady Loki Sylvie, is the perfect like person to do that. And I enjoyed the dynamic between them. Even though it's different than Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston's dynamic, I still liked it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have more than one duo, I really think, and I think that they both duos are great. And just a little side note before we move on, she's a freaking badass too. Like, she took on those TVA agents and those train guards like nothing. Like, she's freaking awesome. So I really enjoyed that. But I want to get to this one part because I gotta talk about it. The mother effing one shot. We did that thing. That thing happened. Okay, if y'all don't know, because I know some of you are new here, and thank you for 700 subscribers. Some of you are new here, so I'm a big cinematography guy. I'm a big shot composition guy. I'm a big how you frame up shots, how you capture events in media. Big one-shot guy. So that's a little background on myself. They brought the freaking one-shot to the MCU. I'm so happy. And you know what? Completely different side note. This makes me 10 million times more excited for the Eternals.
Yeah.
Because they let someone come in and do something cinematic that hadn't really been done before in the MCU and let them go for it. Because that was a tough shot to get, because you got the explosions, the CGI of the buildings falling, you got all these people. That's a tough one take to really choreograph and get right. So I love that, because obviously Kevin Feige and all the people in charge of Marvel were like, yes, you want to do this, do it. They gave Chloe Zhao all the freedom, and I am so freaking excited, because she won a freaking Academy Award for a reason. But I love that we get to see Loki use telekinesis, which is freaking awesome. Hoist that damn building back up, which I thought was so cool. And that's something harkening back to what we talked about last week. We are getting to see Loki and truly his powers, see what he's capable of. It's like Ragnarok for Thor, where we really get to see what Thor is capable of. This is Loki's version of Ragnarok.
Training wheels are off.
Yes, absolutely. We are getting to see what he's capable of, because all we've ever seen from him are gimmicks. That's it. That's all we've ever seen. Because again, he's the side piece. We never get to see him in his full form. Now that he's in the forefront, we get to see him do all of these amazing things that we didn't even know he was capable of. Well, people that read the comics did, but for us, I don't know, unlearned, it's awesome. So what are your thoughts? We'll just talk about the finale in general. What are your thoughts about this finale? You already mentioned the setting. I think the setting's awesome, but what were your overall thoughts of this finale?
I definitely liked this episode. I will say I didn't love the cliffhanger of this one as much as I did the other two, which obviously, I mean, like last episode, we were under the impression that multiverse had been achieved, which wasn't really addressed in this episode, and we'll get to that later. I didn't like the cliffhanger as much, but I do appreciate the setup of the end scene, because in this episode, and I talked about this a little bit in mine when we were talking about like cinematography, the one shot take of that action sequence is so overwhelming. You're not even sure where Lady Loki and in a good way, let me clarify. Yeah. Loki and Lady and Sylvie, you don't know where they are at certain points. Like are they hitting people? Are people hitting them? Are they like shapeshifting? Are they using powers? Like that sort of thing. It's very overwhelming. But what I liked about this episode was both of Lady Loki and Loki, who are supposed to be like superior to all the TVA agents, the way they're shot in this episode is from a very like bird's eye perspective to make them like seem very small and like that they're in this world, they're stuck there, which goes along with the whole point of like we're stranded here. Like by the end, by that sequence, they can't get out. Like, and they're realizing that at the cliffhanger. And I just think that that sequence to culminate an episode where it's like, okay, they're trekking somewhere, and then to show they literally can't move, but all of this is going on around them. They can't get to where they're going. I thought it was great, and I totally agree. I think the best part of Phase 4 for me, my anticipation is just seeing what the MCU is going to level up and seeing people's reaction to it, because like, not that I care if critics like MCU movies, they're always gonna have their gripes with it, whatever, they can do what they want, but like I think being able to have these sequences, these shots, I mean, I saw stills this morning from a tweet I retweeted from episode 2 of Loki, and I was stunned. Like, if no one had told me that that was an MCU, or if I had to pick MCU or not and didn't know, I'd probably say like it's not, just because that's not how I think of the MCU. I think of it as more story as opposed to visual. This episode totally put that notion to shame, and like that's what I love. I totally agree with you with bringing Chloe Zhao on, with Taika Waititi having more control of just Thor and that franchise, like having these specific directors or creatives be able to say like, this is the vision we have for this series. Like, I love it because we're getting to see different things that we've never seen before, and it's so exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, and you say it's like a whole leveling up, like each phase they've leveled up in one way, shape, or form. You know, in phase 1, it's let's just lay the groundwork. In phase 2, it's okay, let's level up, let's see how we can lay more groundwork, but also start to create this coherent story between everyone. Phase 3 is, all right, let's tie everything into a bow and create a huge epic finale.
Yeah.
And now phase 4 is, all right, everyone knows we can do the big stuff. Now let's do it and make it look damn good. And I think Kevin Feige took those comments from Martin Scorsese and said, hold my beer, here we go, we're leveling the F up. Like, because I keep getting giddy over Eternals. It's going to be a freaking masterpiece. I'm telling you, it's going to get nominated for Best Picture. I really hope it does. I don't think it'll win because, again, it's an MCU, and the Academy is just against superhero movies. But Black Panther got a nomination, rightfully so. And now it's 10 movies for Best Picture. It has to be 10. Throw Eternals in there.
Yeah.
Do it now. Do it. So yeah, I freaking love that finale. The cliffhanger for me, I kind of liked it because I'm like, I didn't expect that. Yeah. I didn't expect it because usually in these stories, it's like, oh, well, they're gonna figure it out because they have to. You know, they got to get back to they got to figure this out. And then when they didn't, and you see Lady Loki in the back, which I thought was really funny. She just is kind of like, she's like turns around and walks away.
Yeah, she just
I thought
gives
that
up.
was so funny. I was like, oh crap, they're stuck. And I like that because it's like now I know everyone in the comments is going to come and really stone me over this. It's like an Infinity War, small scale Infinity War. Small scale. Because after Infinity War, we're like, well, what the flip are they going to do now? And we didn't expect it. In Loki, it's like, well, what the hell are they going to do now? Now, I do have a theory that we'll talk about later. If it happens, I might be a little disappointed. But, well, because I just came up with this theory right now, which I should probably write down so I don't forget it. But, yeah, I liked it. I guess I'm going to be like the one person on the internet that like really liked this episode.
I don't think you're the only person. I think I also think there's a collective right now of like people are realizing that they want to say like, oh, everyone's just so divided, or like reviews are really mixed. Reviews are pretty much really mixed for everything depending on who you talk to. And so I feel like, I don't know, like I think I have a little bit, like I feel like I was more, it's more on me that my expectations were different for what this episode would be than like what they gave me, because what they gave me objectively was like, I thought it was really good. I just don't, for what my expectation was, it was different. So you may be the only vocal person who really liked it, because people might be backing away from it now, especially with other people's opinions. But I don't think you're crazy at all for liking it. I liked it. I'm kind of just neutral on it, honestly, in the ranking. This is why I'm glad I'm not doing like episode rankings for these, because I would say something 1 minute about this and it'd be like 4-star out of 5, and then I'd say something that'd be like, oh, it's a 2.5 or 3, and I just switch back and forth. So like,
yeah, I mean, I just love the MCU, so I'm not like all of it. What else? That's kind of it. We kind of cover everything.
I think so. Well, I do want to talk about, just because I don't know how many people are talking about the scene in the beginning where she's doing the margaritas with the TVA agent, like Minutemen or Minutewoman or whatever. And I thought that was great. I think that honestly, that sold me on her as a character, Sylvie as a character, because I could see the Loki side of her of being mischievous, but I also felt like she had way more of a plan than Loki's ever had, or way more of like I mean, she even says like a plan has steps.
But she also says, I've been doing this for years.
Yes.
It's taken me years.
So I really did like that introduction, because I won't say I wasn't sold on her as a character, and I knew she was going to show up because everyone had speculated and whatever. But at the end of last week's episode, like you said, I thought she was going to be like, oh, okay, we're going to have to deal with this really annoying, snooty character who like, she's going to constantly on this superior train with Loki. And then when it was like, oh, they're together this whole episode, I was like, ooh, I don't know. But that scene totally changed my mind, and was like, not only as a character am I fascinated because she has a plan and she's clearly got a purpose with this, and two, like her powers are cool, and just the way they introduced her. And I got a lot more feel for Sophia DiMartino's like range as an actress, and I really liked that in that scene. So I think that was a nice addition.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have something else to talk about. The whole TVA reveal.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to talk too much about it, because a lot of that ties into some of the theories we have.
Okay.
And I think this episode of Theory Time is going to be big, because I got some big theories I want to talk about. But what a bombshell.
I know.
Because I legitimately believed, like, and yeah, propaganda, missed minutes, all that, you know, but I legitimately believed that,
Owen Wilson told us he's been there his whole life, so who are we to question him, you know?
I know, you bring him in.
Owen Wilson.
Like, oh yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, you're sure.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I did. I was like, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, but why do we believe anything they say? Like, what?
I know.
It's Loki, God of mischief. Why are we believing anything anyone is saying in the show? Why are we believing anything? Well, you can't trust anyone. You can't even trust Owen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sasha, I'm gonna break your heart. We can't even trust Owen Wilson at this point.
I know. Well, I will say, I guess my opinion on that reveal, and this isn't really a theory because I don't know that I have anything like intelligent enough or put together enough to form into theory, but like I think with that reveal, like it makes sense. I think, I know, Jack, I don't think you've watched Doctor Who, you said, but if anyone in the chat has watched it, I love the Doctor in Doctor Who, how he's like super fascinated with like human things, because like he's an alien and he's not used to them, and like it could be the most mundane, stupid human thing, but he like loves it because it's like, it's weird and it's different, kind of like in The Little Mermaid. She's like, it's a fork, like, and all that kind of stuff. So I loved Owen Wilson's infatuation with like the jet ski and the idea of owning a jet ski and that sort of thing. And like I almost wanted him to like retire and get a jet ski, like in Men in Black, what Tommy Lee Jones's character in Agent Black, like he's like just retires and goes to work at the post office and whatever. But like I definitely think that was something that people definitely saw it coming, but I think we all were kind of just under the assumption that like they wouldn't lie to us about that. And now I'm really interested to see where it goes on. And I love the casualness with which Sylvie says to Loki, like, yeah, no, they're
It's like,
all like kidnapped,
what?
because he even convinced himself that they must be telling the truth, because he was so suspicious of them for a majority of last week's episode. And then because of all of this, he's like, okay, well, maybe, like, you know, I wouldn't trust me if I was someone else, so maybe they are telling me the truth, you know, like he almost convinced himself. And then for her to just say it so nonchalantly and him to be like, wait a minute, like that doesn't add up. Like, I am really excited to see where that goes next week.
It all makes sense now. Owen Wilson's character owned a jet ski before he came to TVA.
Exactly.
Holy mother of God. I just had that brain blast right now.
The Space Lizards probably just snatched him off his little jet ski.
Yeah, for real.
Wiped his memory and just said, you're an agent here now. Which I was going to say, the fact that the people have varying ages, because the idea of like, oh, you've worked here for so many millennium or whatever, time works differently here, blah, 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 blah. But like, I like the aspect of giving us an organization that the people, I think, within the TVA are trustworthy, because I genuinely don't believe that like
I don't think they know
Agent Mobius knows that he was kidnapped. He probably has some faint memory of a jet ski and that's where his interest comes from. But like, it's in a way where he's almost been wiped clean, and just small parts of him. Like, I don't think anyone there, with the exception of maybe Ravonna Renslayer, the judge, she may know a little bit more of what's going on. But I also don't know, because wouldn't that be perfect to have the person taking your direct orders and overseeing everyone else, that she's just as brainwashed as any of the agents or Minutemen? Like, I think that's very interesting concepts.
Yeah, I don't buy that though. But I didn't buy anything last week, and now I'm like, okay, but it all makes sense. I don't know, but closing thoughts. We're gonna hit more stuff in theories, which if you're watching on the replay or you're watching this video separately, that video will be out in the next few days as well. Closing thoughts.
I think overall I think this episode is overhated. I've realized that things that don't stick to a specific formula within a franchise get overhated, either by people who don't like the fact that there's a formula to begin with, or by people who like the formula, and when it's not obeyed to or it changes within a series, they're uncomfortable with that. And I'm not trying to get on anyone or tell anyone they're wrong for their opinions. I just think this episode is overhated. My entire impression of this episode will really be shaped by the next episode, but I think if people didn't have such high expectations for a Marvel TV show, and this was any other characters on any other network or streaming platform, they would feel totally differently about this episode. Or if they could binge watch the series, they would feel totally differently. But because we aren't used to waiting a week for an episode, and we have these high expectations for Marvel shows, this episode is getting unfair treatment. Kind of the way when WandaVision first came out, people were like, this is horrible, when now that we've had other shows that have pros and cons, like, we can compare them. And people are waiting for a season of Marvel television
that's just like
that they 100% love. Yes, and it's just like a movie. There is not a single movie in the MCU that everyone likes. People have problems with Endgame, even though I would say that's one of the most popular. People have problems with Infinity War. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even Thor Ragnarok has its haters. So, like, all of us have just got to, like, I don't know. We're not theorizing the season, but now our expectations are we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with what we expect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you say. I mean, I already went on my 4-hour rant at the beginning. It should be good that it goes away from the formula.
Yeah.
That means it's trying something, you know?
But it's still kind of following the formula of having characters talk out what they need to talk out, or going to a different place, even like the Madripoor thing. Like, we learn more about Zemo, or had things with Sam and Bucky be put in context because of what Zemo said. Same way we're having stuff with Loki be put in context of Sylvie's opinion and stuff like that. Like, it's just different, guys.
Look for the deeper meanings. Don't just go base level. I think that's another thing, is like, people hate episodes like this because they're not looking for the deeper meanings. You know, for like you and me, we don't just watch TV or movies, but we take in TV or movies, and we really digest what's being said, what are the themes, how is it being put on the screen. Now, if you don't want to do that, which doesn't really take that much brain power, I don't think, but if you don't want to do that and you just want to, then fine, you're gonna hate it. Right. But episodes like this are great if you really want to take it in and like find the deeper meaning, because that's what these are. These are stories with deeper meanings. So there you go.
And I just think
enjoyed
as
the
a
episode.
society too, we're just as a society, whatever. But like,
We
I
live
don't
in a
think people.
society.
I don't. That's what I was trying to make reference to. I don't feel like people are, and I feel very passionately about this because I'm like, when people were like, oh, they're releasing episodes of The Mandalorian weekly. I hate that. Or like, they're releasing episodes weekly. It's like, guys, like, this is how people watch television from its inception to like 5 years ago. Like, still people watch television. I watch This Is Us weekly at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays when it comes out.
I watched Arrow weekly. I watch it weekly all the way up until its finale.
And people forget, I think, that we've become a little spoiled as TV enjoyers, that we wait until a season comes out on Netflix. And if you're able to do that, then I totally understand that you'd rather wait and binge the whole thing. But like, don't have your gripe because one episode is not what you wanted it to be. Do not call it filler, because next week, if it's more of the same, you don't have 2 filler episodes in a 6-episode season. Like, you don't have any filler. The fat is already cut out of these shows. Anyways, sorry. I don't mean to go on a rant on anyone. I just feel like sometimes the way that we watch television now shapes people's opinion of the awesome work that's being done just because they're like, they want it now.
It's not filler. Everything is where it's supposed to be. This episode was as long as it was supposed to be. It was where it needed to be. It hit what it needed to hit. The MCU is very calculated. Don't we trust Kevin Feige? Isn't the saying in Kevin Feige we trust? Like, isn't that the saying? I trust him. Let it happen.